You're listening to the FM Talk Show, brought to you by CER Facility and Property Management. Keep abreast of the latest industry news and conversation with facility management leaders and practitioners. The FM Talk Show, advancing and promoting the FM industry and profession. Here is your host, Craig Henry.
Welcome to the FM Talk Show. We're talking facility management, all in the interest of advancing the FM profession and industry. Our show today has its usual three components, being some commentary on current events. Secondly, we have our industry leader, practitioner, that being Ndebele, the general manager of Menlyn Shopping Centre, located, of course, in Menlyn, Pretoria. And then we'll be closing off again with my journey to circumnavigate South Africa. And this is the last in that series of talks. And I'll be summarizing the journey that took place over the 12 days, 7,000 kilometers. So moving on to our commentary for the session. The last session I spoke about the research that I've done in preparation for two conferences, being the Southern African Asset Management Conference and the South African Facility Management Conference. And a topic that has always been of interest to me is really quantifying the asset base of South Africa and the related asset operating management cost spend. And for most of us, in our organizations, typically we can go to our annual financial statement, we can go to the balance sheet, and we can sort of read what the acquisition costs, the carrying value of our assets. We can go into the income statement, we can see what the property rates, maintenance, security services has costed us. But have you ever wondered about what are those numbers when we throw everything together on a national level? So if we said South Africa P2I Limited, what is the asset base? What is the asset spend? And of course, because this being a facility management related discussion, I just want to share a few insights from a built environment asset. So that being, of course, your land, your developed structures on the land, and excluding for the moment things like roads, infrastructure, industrial assets. So the two sources of information has been Statistics South Africa. It's a annual publication which is referred to as Industry Financials, and that consolidates private sector and certain public sector entities. So when we talk about public sector entities, these are state-owned enterprises. But these statistics then excludes national and provincial governments and municipalities. So when one combines the two perspectives, firstly on an asset carrying value and specifically the built environment assets, so property, buildings, and the like, the Stats SA report talks about an amount of 690 billion rand. And when one then goes through the annual financial statements of national, provincial departments and municipalities, one can add a further 540 billion rand in terms of carrying value, built environment assets, giving a total of about 1.3 billion rand, 1,300 billion or 1.3 trillion rand. So those kind of numbers, sometimes it's like quite difficult to grasp, what does that mean in terms of the asset base? But of course, that then drives considerable operating costs. Because if you think about it, once you have a built environment, once you have a piece of land that's been developed and it has structures on it, there are a whole host of costs that are triggered as a result. So on your income statement, you've got depreciation. You have property rates, electricity, water, and all utilities. If you are leasing that space, of course, then there's rental cost. Further to that, you have all your facility services, cleaning, hygiene, security, pest control, maintenance, etc. And these costs, once again, on a national level, the question would be, what is that order of magnitude? And there's been a number of studies. Various countries have sort of quantified the FM cost. So they've done specific research. In South Africa, not so much, although there has been some studies, but in my experience, it considerably under sort of values or under quantifies the FM spend. So for example, when we look at property rates, leasing and utilities cost, for 2070 was around 270 billion rand. Insurance premiums payable, 12 billion rand. Repairs and maintenance, 48 billion. Security services, 30 billion per annum. So all in all, these costs consequent to owning our built environment runs at about 670 billion rand per annum. So that is a considerable, sum of money, and it also equates to, the industry that supports this built environment. And in my opinion, it has always been the case that facility services, facility management is a considerable industry, although it has not been, necessarily formalized as such in the sort of industry reporting frameworks, but nonetheless considerable. Now, one of the things that we also look at is to understand, well, if this is the asset base, are we taking care of this asset base? Are we maintaining it appropriately? Because in maintaining it, you are securing the future health, well-being of that asset and its ongoing support to enable economic activity, to enable services, etc. So if we take one of the statistics or benchmarks that National Treasury uses for public sector entities, they expect that public sector entities should be spending about 8% of their asset carrying value on repairs and maintenance, right? 8%. So, National Treasury, their benchmarks, their guidelines are well researched. So this is not sort of just, waking up one morning and thumb-sucking a guideline or a benchmark. So if you were to apply just that aspect to the carrying value of public sector assets, a built environment specifically, you are expected to see a repairs and maintenance spend of 43 billion, but it's only 11 billion, meaning the extent of maintenance is a quarter of what is required. If we look at, taking private and public, 8% of 1.2 trillion, 1.2 trillion, yes, we should be spending 100 billion on repairs and maintenance. We're only spending 48 billion, only 50% of what's required. And what certainly comes through is that public sector is grossly under-maintaining our facilities. And these belong, of course, to the citizens of South Africa. Now, what is the impact of that? The impact, if one looks at the South African Institute of Civil Engineers, they conduct the state of infrastructure every 5 years, and the last one was in 2017. And they did one in 2006, 2011, and then 2017. And the rating is very simple. If you have an A rating, means your infrastructure is at world-class status, down to E, where it's totally unfit for purpose. A grading of C is, satisfactory for now, as they would put it. But really, anything that is of a lower C grade down to DE, that is huge concern, because it actually says that there's no sustainability, there's no future. The infrastructure will continue to degrade, and eventually it will reach a point of failure. And when we look at how the facilities are graded, we see that, as example, healthcare. So that's our hospitals, our clinics are graded at a D+. It has been in decline from 2006 to 2011. Compared 2011 to 17, it's unchanged. And this is the healthcare facilities and infrastructure. Education is a D+. Sort of hospitals, I mentioned D+, clinics, also D+. So much of our, social services, built environment that's there to service the masses is in a very poor state of maintenance. And you hear this, there's so many indicators that corroborate how bad things are. So the bottom line is we should be hugely concerned about the lack of maintenance to these facilities, which results in accelerated degradation, and the consequence is eventual failure. And with infrastructure and these type of facilities, these are not things that you can simply replace tomorrow. It requires hundreds of billions of rand and many years of planning before such can actually surface. So we can only hope that our new minister, for example, of public infrastructure and public works and infrastructure, really brings the profession, the minds, the skills together to make sure we get out of the state of decline. For sure, if we do not, we are setting up our own country for failure. So that sounds like a bit of not so good news, but of course, nothing is ever failed or lost. There is always opportunity if we have right leadership and bringing the skill sets on board. We can indeed solve this. So we are, we'll be starting with our industry leader practitioner very shortly. Just going to break for a moment, and we will resume in a moment.
You're listening to the FM Talk Show, brought to you by CER Facility and Property Management. CER Facility and Property Management is capable to meet the diverse needs of any organization where the built environment is a core enabler of the organization's strategy and operational performance. CER Facility and Property Management is part of the greater CER ecosystem of people-centered enterprises, focusing on high-performance facilities and physical assets, and range from advisory to operational services, and over the life cycle of the built environment, from portfolio strategy, design, construction, occupational readiness, operations, and repurposing. CER Facility and Property Management, built environments for human flourishing.
You're listening to a brandlive.co.za podcast.
Right, we are back. Thank you very much. Just one thing that I wanted to mention is that we are currently recording live from an estate called Kikuyu, which is located in Waterfall. And so we are not today in our normal recording studio. So please excuse if you hear any strange noises, like an aircraft going overhead. But nonetheless, we are in quite a beautiful environment, and just for you to be aware of. So we have Olive Ndebele. She is the general manager for Menlyn Retail Shopping Centre. For many South Africans, those particularly in Gauteng, you should know the shopping centre located in Menlyn, Pretoria. I personally know Olive on a personal and a professional level for many years, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure to have her to join us on this discussion. So, Olive, thank you very much, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on the show, and an afternoon to your listeners as well.
Thank you. Olive, you are sort of, if I may use the word, the leader, first of all, the manager of Menlyn Shopping Centre, and I know it's probably one of the premier shopping centres in South Africa, but we as people that just goes around our business, pops into the store, we know that there are other shopping centres like Mall of Africa. So could you maybe just give us some insight to what is Menlyn from a point of view of scale, the number of visitors you have, just to get a perspective that this is a significant facility?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that. And I think as you were speaking earlier on, I'm just awed by the stats, of the built environment. And it's great that we are actual participants of that built environment. So Menlyn Park was developed in 1979 initially, and it has undergone 3 refurbishments as well as an expansion. Now, the last expansion was completed in 2016, which literally brought the shopping center to a total GLA of 174,000 square meters, with a total building area of in excess of 205,000 square meters. So it's big. It's a big space. And in relation to other key shopping centers in the country, Menlyn is currently the largest. And if we are the largest in South Africa, that also means that we are the largest on the continent. So it's a great space to be in. Our geographical location is advantageous in a sense that we've got 2 access points, to the main national highway, which is the N1. Yes. And the N1 obviously connects us to Johannesburg, but not only that, it allows us as Menlyn to also serve 3 other provinces, the Northwest, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. It is the main shopping hub, especially when you're coming from the northern side and the northwest side. So we're big, we're large. We have in excess of 400 tenants, so 400 stores. We were initially built at 500 stores, but we've had to just rationalize signs of the economy. And we have passing traffic up to 2 million feet, per month. It's cyclical.
Wow.
So towards the end of the year, in peak season, that's when we see much higher levels of foot count. And you may have heard of Black Friday.
Yes.
So on that particular day, we have record-breaking, feet coming in through the center. The highest number we've had is 190,000 feet, going through the mall in one day. So it's pretty impressive statistics. Yes. And it's good to know that we serve the community because we all have to shop. We shop for things that we both need and don't need. So it's a great space to be in.
Excellent. And, only because I've also lived in Pretoria for many years, and I've seen the adjoining Menlyn development in terms of, the casino complex, etc. And I've always sort of wondered, does that perhaps take away trade from Menlyn Shopping Centre, or is there a complementary or synergistic effect of?
There's definitely a complementary and synergistic effect. So Menlyn was possibly one of the first commercial buildings to be in the Menlyn area. I believe, 1979, it's a throwback. However, what we've seen is just the investor confidence in the area, in a sense of other commercial buildings that are being built, hotels, as you've noticed, the casino is there, and it makes it now become a hub. You can say Menlyn is almost like the Sandton of Pretoria. It has become the CBD, over and above the central district. In Pretoria, we actually view ourselves as a city, within a city.
And, given our particular focus on facility management, and you mentioned the refurbishments that has got, the number of refurbishments and the expansion. And often we feel that sometimes the facility management professionals are excluded from, the design thinking and processes leading to construction, whereas the facility professionals has to take care of that facility once developed. Has Menlyn followed perhaps a different approach where the facility professionals are incorporated in the design and construction phases?
Sure, that's a great question to ask. In fact, I think there's pending books that we all want to write. So the industry has always followed its own tradition in a sense that either they've got a greenfields development or a brownfields development. You get the developers in. We get involved with the numbers, with the feasibilities, to actually advise on the rental levels that we can actually charge post the development. But during the construction period, It really is about the professional team and the contractors, the likes of the WBHO, the Marine Roberts of this world, the Group 5s. And there isn't really operational involvement. Traditionally, the industry builds the building and then hands over, to facilities management and to the rest of the management companies. And it's a very interesting topic whereby I do believe that there should be a lot more two-way dialogue, a lot more insight and input into the design. Of course, we're not architects, but we certainly can influence and inform on the operational environment and the practicality of things. And it would obviously differ whether you building a commercial office space as opposed to a shopping center and or a hotel or a hospital. So those dynamics will be there. But it's been a very interesting journey because facilities management is literally almost the heartbeat of the development, in a sense that you cannot do anything without facilities management presence and expertise. In a shopping center, from the minute that you take your parking ticket to the time that you return that parking ticket and the boom opens, everything that you experience other than the actual stores in a shopping center is in the facilities management space. So it is vital that we start engaging and dialoguing, because also facilities management it's success is vital for the success of the organization. We have to streamline operations. It's important for us as a shopping center to actually even pursue those cost efficiencies, because the cost efficiencies impact on the cost of occupation for the tenants, because they have to pay rent and actually we recover those costs from them. And it gives us then a competitive edge if we've got lower cost of occupation versus other shopping centers. So it's very important. It's also important for us to align our cost to income ratios so that we can also compete and be aligned to industry benchmarks, let alone the shareholders, as you can imagine. The health and safety of the people. There's, I told you the stats of the traffic that goes in and out that mall. So it's of critical importance that facilities management is as efficient as we possibly, can be.
Yes.
And I can go on.
Yes. I think to touch on a point that you actually mentioned, that there are probably, routine matters and all of these contribute to the efficiency and effectiveness. But given the traffic, inevitably things do go wrong, and we know that we live in a challenging environment where criminal elements frequent shopping centers. You have, medical emergencies. So how do you go about, and from a trend point of view, certainly facility management considers emergency preparedness and the ability to respond to bring things back to a normalized state. How do you sort of deal with those type of incidents that I'm sure happens fairly often in your environment?
Very often. So people's safety is our number one priority. And incidentally, we've just had an emergency evacuation drill this morning. And it does inconvenience customers. However, it is important that we are as prepared as possible so that in an event whereby we have to evacuate the building, we are as prepared and it's not as surprised, because it is something that will make people nervous and make them panic. So we certainly can't panic. So that's important. We're also fortunate to have contracted the services of paramedics. So they're almost like a tenant of ours, and they have an ambulance, and they've got trained staff that are on site so as to respond to any medical emergencies. But over and above that, technology. So we utilize technology a lot. There's sophisticated CCTV cameras, as you can imagine. We have an excess of 800 cameras, throughout the building. So it's quite big. And therefore, we can't monitor the cameras in your normal, conventional way. So I can't tell you too much, obviously, because it will just impede on our security intelligence. However, there is higher levels of technology that we utilize with the CCTV cameras, as well as linking with the police and the Hawks, we've got license plate recognition, etc. So as to try and curb crime. There will always be the human element, so we still have the security guards to deal with those crimes whereby you just have to run and catch somebody and deter them. So we believe we've implemented quite a bit. If you go to Menlyn now lately, you'll also see that we've got spikes at the entrances and the exits, to make it less favorable for criminals. Because as we shop, yes, there's also other elements, that shop. So yeah. So in terms of security and safety for our customers, the HVAC system as well. When we refurbish, we also put in the latest and the greatest. That's what was sold to us. It's quite big. I mean, we've got 12 chillers. You would understand as a facilities management professional, and over 100 air handling units. But the extraction as well. All the abiding by all the fire regulations, the design of the mall in terms of how many evacuation passages, all that beautiful stuff that you as facilities managers, specialize in, and compliance. So as a big shopping center like us, we are very strict on compliance, and we always try and go the extra mile in terms of the planned maintenance of our equipment, without also compromising the lifespan of the equipment. In procurement, I always find it interesting in a sense that escalators, they will tell you the lifespan is so many years. But what they sometimes omit to discuss with us, non-technical people, is that when you have high volumes of traffic count like you have as Bedland, you're obviously reducing the lifespan of that product, and your maintenance regime has got to be spec'd a lot higher than in a normal shopping center. So it's an interesting space, to be in from a facilities management point of view. And I'm just awed because I just continue to learn on a daily basis. Yeah.
Excellent. Olive, thank you very much, and really to bring that insight, because I think it's a facility manager is an exciting profession, and talking about the Menlyn environment just only stimulates, and I hope there's a lot of young people listening, because I think we'd like to get more young people into the space, because it is exceptionally fulfilling and challenging in so many levels.
Yes, absolutely. And we'd like to invite all those youngsters, because it definitely is a place of learning as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, and really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Right, we're going to just have a short break, and then I'll coming back just to finish.
Brandlive.co.za. Brandlive.co.za. We bring your brand to life. You're listening to a Brandlive.co.za podcast.
Right, we are back. Over the past few months, I've been talking you through the trip that I took towards the end of 2018, and that was to circumnavigate South Africa on motorbike over 12 days, some 7,000 kilometers. And the whole idea was to leave Pretoria, head west down the N4 to Nelspruit, and then basically head north all the way along the northern border to Alexander Bay on the west coast, down the west coast, eventually along the southern coast and eastern coast, and back to Pretoria. And it was an exceptional experience. And just a few insights from that journey. The one is, we have an absolutely beautiful country. It is absolutely rich in natural beauty, which in itself is a draw card for tourism and our tourism industry. We have so many different landscapes and experiences, from, desert, semi-desert environments to more tropical environments, going through mountain ranges, etc. So you will find absolutely a bit of everything within South Africa. And given, that richness, the sad reality is that we are also a country of extremes. you will find beauty, wealth, and luxury. On the one hand, you'll find extreme poverty and absolutely depressive environments. I'm thinking of, the Uppington area where, you have the vineyards, such exceptional beauty and peace. And, leaving one early morning, you see a whole lot of, workers packed in a truck like a tin of sardines. And, and you go through various places where the unemployment is obviously rife, areas are so degraded, and it supports the whole aspect of, which is reported upon in terms of the Gini coefficient, that South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world. I think our score at the present is like 0.64 or 5. And of course, the closer you approach to 1 is like ultimately the extreme. If you add 0, everyone is sort of on the same level. And there's absolutely no sustainability for us to be living within such extremes. When I look at the facilities and the infrastructure as we travel the country, on the one hand, again, you have sort of a beautiful, say, national road looked after by SANRAL, and then you can get into a municipality, and it is just pathetic in terms of the level of degradation because the infrastructure, the facilities are not maintained. And yet, facilities and infrastructure is a source of immense employment, because we need to maintain our facilities, we need to maintain our infrastructure, and yet we have such considerable unemployment. And there is a productive opportunity to engage persons that are unemployed, provide the right training, and assure the upkeep of our facilities and infrastructure. And it has a dual role of removing those inequalities, but also when we invest in and take care of our infrastructure, it is there for future generations. What a sad legacy if we have to leave our children or our grandchildren destroyed infrastructure. So, at the end of the day, what a beautiful country we have, what immense possibilities, opportunities, but we live in a country of extremes. And certainly if we can simply have a strategy around upkeep of our facilities and infrastructure by, taking those that are unemployed, giving them basic minimal training, we will absolutely achieve much, in our current situation and in our future. So thank you for going along with this journey of the past few weeks. And I hope it has been insightful to you, and look forward to our next discussion in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
You have been listening to Craig Henry on the FM Talk Show, brought to you by CER, Facility and Property Management. Tune in every second and last Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. Podcasts are available on www.cerecosystem.com.